what's going to be, how's it hanging, how's it happen? You guys know this is Kevin from the Chord Progression Podcast. The podcast, Rolling Stone Magazine says, one that initiates profound discussions with rock and metal artists, allowing fans to discover the creative workflow of their favorite musicians and understand the factors that make the band succeed or fall from fame. We are also sponsored by Dark Fusion Systems, the best for your custom computing needs. Get $100 off your entire code CBPod at darkfusionsystems.com. Link to the podcast below. But now it's time for our feature presentation, and this one, we get deep once again. We have Evan from the band Thrown Into Exile on the podcast. The brand new EP, Passageways, is out by the time you're checking this out, so go and check it out. But we talk about Evan returning to music, returning to Thrown Into Exile, the creation of the Passageways EP. But more importantly, he opens up about where the lyrics came from for this, how it relates to the passing of his father, and how these lyrics not only help him heal, but also help us connect to him as well and connect to the people that we love as well. It's just an incredible episode that really gets in the nitty-gritty of why music, especially metal, is great at what it does for so many people when it gets honest and when it opens up. You guys ready? Let's go! Yeah. Well, ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, listeners of the Chord Progression Podcast. Ever since starting this whole entire podcast thing, really getting more into music than I ever had back in around 2018, 2019, the biggest genre that ever came into my life was definitely metalcore. I love the heaviness of it. I love the catchiness of it. And plus, you can't help yourself when you see them live in bands live and you just go jump in a mosh pit. It's just like an infectious thing, like you're a kid on Christmas going after that bicycle that's wrapped under the tree. And any band that's going to be playing that kind of style, I'm going to want to talk to, see what they're up to, especially they've got new music coming out, and boom, we got one for you right here. So all the way from Los Angeles, California, the brand new EP called Passageways comes out on November 15th, but by the time you check out this interview, it'll already be out. So if you have heard it, you get to see some cool things about it. If you haven't heard it, though, just stick with us and get ready for it, and then go check it out because you're going to want to do that. But for the time being, let's enjoy. So please welcome Evan from Thrown Into Exile to the podcast. So Evan, welcome to the Chord Progression Podcast.
Thanks for having me.
Thanks for being on, man. How has everything been going in your world today? Of course, you know, by the time people listen to this, the EP will be out, but we're recording this 2 days before the release of it. So where's your mindset right now, man? How you feeling?
Finish line, seeing the finish line for sure. It's been something we've been working on for almost the past year. Putting the EP together, and then putting artwork together, treatments for the music videos, shooting the music videos, setting up the release show, working on stage production for the show. Yeah, it's been cool, and we're almost there. So it's kind of nice to see it all come to fruition.
Well, I always hear people talk about that when a new album's going to come out, a new EP is going to come out. It's finally getting to that finish line because it is a whole process that you have to go through. But what you just described, it seems like it's like get to the first part of the finish line because there's so much more after it, the release of it. You guys have been working on the show production and putting that all together, but you got to do the debut show. You got to put this record out there. You got to get more people to check it out. And of course, you got to go out and play more shows because people are going to listen to you and they're going to want to do what I do, jump in the pit and just be like a little kid on Christmas having an absolute blast. So it's a great point of a finish line, but then there's already that next race that's going to start to continue this whole entire journey of what is going to be Passageways.
100%. It's all going to be a whole new live set from what we've been doing since I've been back in the band from early last year. So it's kind of nice to have just, looking forward to just having a whole new live set of songs that were all just recently written. And, I think everybody in the band's really excited about this next era.
I mean, why wouldn't you be excited about the next era, especially with the way that not only is heavier music being taken in by pop culture, but it's getting a lot more recognized. You're seeing a lot more fans come into the genre. You're seeing bands like, especially that still have connections to the heavy side of things, Bad Omens, Sleep Token, even bands like Knocked Loose really starting to grow in prominence. So more and more people are checking out heavy music. And I'm even seeing smaller shows where more and more people are starting to come out again because there's more connection to music and people are starting to find more and more of these artists. So definitely a good time to be going out there and exciting to get this music out there, as so much more of pop culture and so much more of even the rock and metal scene as well is focusing in on so many other bands to find the creativeness and the beauty and the absolute craziness that is coming out of the world right now.
Yeah, it's been pretty cool to I mean, I'm glad we're kind of coming out with new music at this time. Like, although we have been working on it for some time, it's kind of a cool time for it all to come out. I feel like there's a lot of new music all coming out right now, which is great for the fans because they're not sitting around waiting for something new. They have plenty to choose from.
Oh, there's plenty to choose from. There's plenty of new things to choose from too. It's
Mhm.
not like a time period where everything that was released was very similar, or there was just a trend that everyone was trying to hop on, or like during the pandemic when we knew people were working on music, but it's like, when is this going to be released? Because there's no touring at that point in time, so there's no real support for it. So we're just waiting for something great to happen. And now, even 3.5 years later, after pretty much like pandemic ceased, live shows came back, the flow of music from every single artist in the rock and metal world and every single subgenre has not only increased in quality, but younger bands and smaller bands too are getting much more recognition than I think they really ever were before. The internet helps with that, but the fever pitch behind where music is really adds to it.
Yeah, I don't know if anybody, I'm pretty sure most people were scared about live music during that time. Didn't know if it was ever going to come back, and if it did, what were the restrictions going to be like, and is it ever going to be the same? I think that thought crossed everybody's mind. But obviously, we're at a point now where things have pretty much returned to normal as far as live shows are concerned, and I mean, it's just I see every day on my feed just new tours coming about and festivals being announced, reunions. So it's a cool time to be a part of live music and to have new stuff to show the world as well, and get a chance to be out there with everyone for sure.
I think the only entity that does not see this as a cool time is my bank account, because it keeps going down, down, down. More tours get announced, more bands keep coming up. Like, I want to go see these guys. I want to go see these girls. I want to go see these people play. My bank account tells me maybe not to, but then I just say, screw it. It's fun. So I'm going anyway.
Yeah, that's the attitude, man. I mean, see it while you can. None of these things are forever, so catch them while you can, and catch them when it's fresh and it's new, and the bands are just about excited as playing it for you as you are to be out there listening to it.
Yeah, and it's especially bands that, of course, you're going to want to go see the bands that you absolutely love, that you're absolutely connected to. Totally understandable. And some of those like absolutely massive bands that you've always wanted to see that have had some sort of an impact on you. But what you're saying about, the younger bands or smaller bands that are really still incredibly excited over this, that might be playing some smaller rooms, it's a much more intimate setting. It can become a much more manic, wild, but also at times life altering for the positive setting, because you go to see a show, you go to see a band that you absolutely love in a smaller room, and you want to see them grow and get in on them early. You get to be in these places and become a part of something that not many other people are going to get. And if you get into that, it's just like a massive rush of positivity, not only from the fan side, but also from the artist side, as you see so many people getting into you and watching you grow and grow to the point where now you're playing bigger venues, you're playing more consistently, you're going out on the road touring with these major acts that maybe you even wanted to tour with for so long, and so many other people are to get into it. And then we get to see you play next, and it's like we're standing in a crowd of 10,000 people at a festival, everyone hanging on your every word, every note, every beat, just to have an absolute blast.
Well, that's the end goal for sure, is to everybody to know every word of every song and be able to hear it back when you're out there. I think that's the dream of most bands, who especially within this genre. Um, there's a Yeah, there's definitely a long road to get there. But I think all of us have kind of stayed stayed on track to make it happen.
I would say so, because I think earlier a couple minutes ago, you said that, you had come back to this over the past year. So what was that like, coming back into this and really becoming fully a part of this once again to make this new music, and now going back out and playing these songs live, not only the new ones, but the same ones maybe you've played beforehand, and getting a chance to do it again?
Yeah, coming back after 6 years of being away from a stage was something that I didn't know if I was going to enjoy it still. I didn't know if I could still want to do it or still do it. Um, but first show back after 6 years of being away was a sold out show with Mayhem in Tijuana. So it was quite the introduction to being like brought back to the stage. So And the show went really well. Obviously, nerves before any show, but once you get up there and strike the first chord or hit the first, vocal note, all that goes away. And then we did just a run of shows last year. The majority of it was playing, the past albums, the past singer stuff. We released our first single with me back in it in October of last year, called "You Fallen So Far." So we threw that in the set, and then after that came out, we just started working on the EP. We had done like a string of like 14 shows last year. Went to Monterrey, Mexico, went to Milwaukee for the Milwaukee Metal Festival, played the Metal Injection Festival. Uh, we did a string of regional shows as well with Orbit Culture, with Beer Factory, with Bleeding Through. And I really just wanted to focus on writing new stuff and just getting all new stuff with me on it, not necessarily uh, with the past singers or the past material, but just all fresh stuff, kind of a new era of Thrown Into Exile, bringing it back to where it originally started in 2011, but just more with kind of like more of an identity, a direction, more of a identifiable sound, and just focusing on writing really great songs, not trying to write the heaviest or the fastest, but trying to write uh, memorable songs that people can recite the lyrics back and stuff like that too. Uh, and it's just, past year writing all this new stuff has been pretty therapeutic. Writing treatments for music videos, doing the music videos, just seeing the vision, these lyrics all the way through is it's been really rewarding, and we're almost there, and to the point where everybody can hear the what we've been working hard on this past year, and we'll see what people think, see what the feedback is.
Well, I mean, by the time this episode releases, you'll have gotten a good amount of that feedback from the release of the EP, seeing what people have thought about it, seeing how people took to it. But there's a couple of pieces of that story that you just told, a little bit of it that I really am interested in. And I know you're talking about, you guys played at like a run of 14 shows, popped on a couple of festivals. And the one I'm kicking my ass is when you said you played Milwaukee Metal Fest, and I think you played there the one day I wasn't there because the venue that hosted the rave is literally like 3.5 miles away from where I'm sitting right now, and I go there all the time. So I'm like, dang it. Oh well,
yeah.
Maybe 2025 they'll be like, we got to get Thrown Into Exile back on this list, and then all of a sudden it's like, okay, got to give me my ticket now. My bank account's gonna be pissed, but who cares?
I wouldn't rule it out. We had a good time last time. Had a great turnout and great response. And if there's still room for more bands to touch the stage this next year, I'm sure we'll
I mean,
definitely gladly accept.
I mean, there's got to be more room because I know I think they're trying to do like the Wednesday beforehand because it's always like Thursday, Friday, Saturday. Like they're trying to do like, or Friday, Saturday, like they're trying to do like one day where you get a little early sneak peek in there, like a couple of bands. So there's open spots on there possibly, but again, you never know what might happen. I'm really hoping that you guys end up getting to come play that festival again. It's always a great time. It was a fantastic time last year. And then this time it's like, okay, now I can make sure I get to see Thrown Into Exile because I think the one day you guys played was the day that I missed last year. So, darn it. But hopefully there's another chance.
We'll see. We'll be back. We'll see you when we get back for sure.
Oh, absolutely. But the other thing that stood out to me before we dive in further in the music was your first return show was in Tijuana, Mexico. I have never heard of anybody's first show, especially in a metal band, in Tijuana, Mexico. That just is wild to me.
There's such a scene down there for metal as a whole, specifically black metal, which would have been more so the band that we were opening up for, Mayhem. But even still, they didn't come just to see Mayhem. They came to see live music, and it was really humbling to see the response that we got from a band from that most of them probably never heard of. But yeah, killer from front to back. Everybody was well involved, and it was cool. It was it was interesting. It was my first time to Tijuana, to be honest, and first time playing there as well. So yeah, yeah, it's interesting. You couldn't have asked for a more interesting first show back.
Oh, I would agree. Just again, it's a different country. Whenever people think about Tijuana, they always think about some sort of crazy story that's going to happen there. It's if you talk to a friend, it's like, yeah, I went to Tijuana. Okay, what crazy thing did you get into when you woke up? Where were you? Did you actually know where you were? And were all your belongings with you? Like, there's always questions about what things happen in Tijuana, but I had no idea that there was a huge black metal scene down there. I really had no idea that there was any kind of metal scene down there at all. But the fact that there is incredible. Beyond that, you guys being able to go there for your, especially you for your first show back, play with Mayhem, but also have people who are very into black metal come and just be open to the experience of live music, but also enjoy the fact that when it comes to seeing bands that they like, and I've seen this a little bit more over across the country as well, and I still hope it continues, that more and more artists are going to be like venturing out and touring with artists that aren't necessarily in the same genre as them, but can also fit in like an aesthetic way or in just like a pace, energy, whatever it might be, because that is where the amplification of these sounds come in, these new ideas come up, and then you see other people get inspired to try new things, try different ideas, mix different genres together, and that just fosters a further creative environment than really almost anything else really could, because you get that direct impact on people.
Yeah, Thrown Into Exile has been kind of a chameleon, I guess you could say, when it comes to that, because we do have a lot of influences, I would say, from different subgenres of metal. I don't know if we necessarily consider ourselves to be any kind of subgenre. I think we just kind of label ourselves as a metal band. Because once I think about like labeling us as a subgenre, like a
Mhm.
thrash metal band or a metalcore band, I think people like expect a certain sound when you all of a sudden you hear this when you say a subgenre. But like when you just say a metal band, it'd be like, there's just a lot of influences, like, a metalcore I would expect, a kill switch engage type of approach where it's aggressive verses and then a big kind of like switch in, less textured, clean singing, big cleaning singing kind of like vocals and stuff like that. But I like to do it in a way where there's a little bit of, I guess, texture to the voice. There's a little bit more rasp, maybe a little bit more rock for it, So it's not your traditional like metalcore in that sense, where there's such a defined line between aggressive verses and a clean singing chorus. More of just like a subtlety in the way that the vocals are delivered. Uh, Although my approach is probably a little more audible than a lot of metal bands that are out there today. But that's just, my upbringing and how I became a vocalist myself and the singers that I was inspired by at the time.
But that's how it's done. That's how great music is created, when you take these different influences all over each other and you create something that is your own. And yeah, listening through what you guys have, not only on other songs that you previously released, but also on the Passageways EP, yeah, you can tell, especially from an instrumental side, there's definitely some metalcore tendencies in there. I picked up on other tendencies that you might be able to pick up from bands like Killswitch Engage, like you said, or even Trivium as well. But there's more complexities to it. There's more nuance to it, because there's never, especially in your guys' music, there's never really that drastic change or that drastic divide between more aggressive and more driving verses and more of these clean, bombastic, sometimes very open and engaging choruses, where the vocal patterns definitely have a little more of a grittier, rougher tone to them and a continued drive, so that energy continues to stay consistent. But you can still tell there is a little bit of a differentiation between verse and chorus, but that energy just keeps going and you're not really getting that massive contrast, which again, that contrast can really bring the positives out of each side, but you can also lose certain things. And by keeping it consistent, you might not get the power of the contrast, but you're having a different feel to the song that comes out in a different way from your influences, but it hits people in different ways and it gets people motivated mentally in different ways when they listen to your music.
I think off the EP, the one song that probably the chorus that has the most contrast to me is Caskets Beyond
Mm-hmm.
Cremation, because the transition from verse to chorus. I mean, I guess it could kind of be considered metalcore, but to me, it sounds like more of a rock chorus.
Mm-hmm.
Like it sounds more rock forward with the way the drums are, with the way the vocals sound. It sounds more rock forward than it does like a kind of metalcore to me. So, and after hearing it back, it's probably one of my favorite songs on the EP. It's just it's a cool approach, I think, to and a different take on what metalcore could be. It's kind of like I think Mario said something along the lines of there's a subgenre that's probably not well known, but it's called black and roll, like a kind of a combination of black metal and rock and roll. And not to say that we're black metal, but I like the idea of combining metal and rock and roll. I think that's pretty cool because obviously that's where metal obviously stemmed from.
It obviously stems from that too, because if you think about where heavy metal really started, you think about like the initial band that really kicked it off with Black Sabbath, that came out of the late 60s. And I mean, you're going to see more consistent similarities with bands like the Beatles and the Rolling Stones, especially in their early music, just in a heavier setting. And then everything begins to really evolve from there. I do like the black and roll idea too, because black metal and rock and roll can have that same aggressive feel to it at times, especially from the instrumentals, but the drive is so much different at times where that contrast can really pull things out. And on Caskets Beyond Cremation, the chorus definitely has more of that contrasting feel between the verses. It does open up a more of a rock forward setting, which I do like, because you think about a lot of the bands that really hit, especially influential, let's say 20 years ago. I think about, a lot of the bands that people still consider like dad rock bands now, because they're 20 years older than they were. So people that were, listening when they were kids back then are dads now. It happens. That's just the way it is. It's life. But that sound and that style still connects so heavily with so many people. So if you're working with it and you want to use it because you're passionate about it, absolutely, it creates that massive imposing contrast, but in also a super anthemic way that adds so much more vigor and so much more of a bravado to the song than could be possibly seen unless you're just constantly going in the similar capacity of, oh, we're expected to do this in metal, we're expected to do this in metalcore, so we're going to follow suit. Plus, I've seen other bands too start to incorporate more, instead of just straight breakdowns, put some guitar solos in there like classic, like good old rock and roll. Add some of that in there. It gives it a much different feel, but the energy never wanes. Like, there's so many different things you can do with this sound and this style that the more you mix it, the more new things you find. And then you get things like Casting Down to Cremation, where you get a heavier feel to it, but then all of a sudden, boom, you get the rock part of the chorus, and it's a contrast that works out so well within itself.
Yeah, we're big on guitar solos. We're big on leads. We're big on dueling leads, harmonizing, the guitars and stuff like that. And we're focusing on large and anthem type choruses, as well as the instrumentals too. Just everything kind of having that real kind of large, bigger than life rock sound when the choruses hit. So we're approaching it in a different way, and we're really trying to focus on just writing good songs, and not necessarily just going for the heaviest or the thrashiest, but something that something that's lasting.
And I do like that idea too, and this is where I'm going with this, because especially in the day and age of the music scene in 2024, and this is just the music industry in general, with how prominent social media has become, how prominent TikTok has become, and the shorter attention spans, you might want to write the heaviest part here for this breakdown or this riff or whatever it is, just to kind of get that amplification on some social media site. But if that's all there is, people flock to it and then they go right away because the rest of the song doesn't hit, or the rest of the substance just isn't there for people to really clamor onto and cling to and grow within it as well. Yeah, I'm waiting for that cool part to hit, but that's really it. If I find a band that has a cool piece of it and they put it online, and then I check out the rest of the song and there's so much more to it, there's so much more substance to it, and it's a great song, now I'm going to dive deeper into it, because those moments, those crazy little moments, that can happen from just inspiration without even, focusing on we have to have this insane moment. We have to have this big bombastic moment. But when people listen to a song, especially when you really get into an artist that you like, you don't listen to just 1 minute of a song or one section of a song. You're listening to the whole entire thing, and even more so. And it's the quality of the music and the quality of the writing, the absolute connection to the sound that you're feeling. That's what brings people in, and that's what gets people to stay, because they feel you in your music, they feel themselves in your music, and that connection grows from there.
No, 100%, man. There's well said. There's a lot of truth to that, and I think people will see a genuine approach to our writing and what we're doing. We're not doing something that there's genres and styles are so saturated sometimes, like especially nowadays within metal. You see a lot of regurgitated stuff. with some bands, I think I think it's cool to take the approach that we're doing, maybe and just when it comes to writing and stuff like that, and not really necessarily putting this in a box, and just kind of taking our time with each song, writing it, and however it comes out. We're not necessarily going for a certain style, like a carbon copy chorus every single time. I think on the EP, there's two songs that have a real just kind of just a scream aggressive type chorus, where the other ones may have a little bit more of an audible vocal approach in it. Um, yeah.
And that again, that makes sense too, because you're trying these things that are gonna hit for you guys, and it's gonna hit for the song specifically. Because if you're like, I have to follow along suit with these ideas, and I have to put this clean chorus here, I have to put this style of chorus here, I have to put this style of verse here because it's gonna fit with the overall flow of what's popular in metal, then that's where the sound becomes saturated, or the sound, maybe what you're going for, begins to have this similar feel to it from song to song. And people will, of course, even as artists yourselves, you might pull away from it because there's not as much creativity there and you want to grow in a different capacity. So trying different ideas, trying new things, and really getting into the writing process, not only from a lyrical standpoint, but from an instrumental standpoint, from a production standpoint, to allow these songs to come forward. Then that's where the saturation in the metal market, or whatever subgenre you want to talk about, that's where that saturation begins to break, because you're trying so many different ideas, you're putting so many different things into the music that absolutely think that they fit, but you're absolutely working on it. And if it's going to work, you're going to try it out, it's going to work. If it's not going to work, you're going to try it out and be like, that didn't work on that song, so let's try something different. But at least at that point in time. That's the beauty of especially the digital age, where you don't have to buy a whole bunch of tape to record on that. It's like, already that didn't work. Let's hit the delete button. Let's try again.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, 100. It's cool working on this new stuff because it starts obviously with the instrumentals and the feeling that you're getting from that first chord to the first verse and to that chorus hits. And with the day and age that we live, we can send ideas back and forth fairly quickly. I have a, a room, a detached garage here at my house that I can go in and track demo vocals very quickly to send it back and show like, hey, this is where my head's at with this, this is my approach to it, so we can move fairly quickly. We all don't need to necessarily be in the same place at the same time to make it happen. So it's it starts with nitpicking the instrumentals and the music first until it gives you the feels, and then once you get that, then you just listen to it over and over and over again and start laying down what you want to talk about in that vocal approach, and the magic starts to happen once all that happens.
That's the beauty of the instrumentals, though, on any song, because they can guide that emotion to a completely different place than you thought it was going to be. So you guys constantly sending the stuff back and forth and nitpicking the instrumentals until you really feel something. Then you get that moment of, oh my Lord, this is making me feel like this, or this is reminding me of a time for this. You pick up on that inspiration because now emotionally and mentally you're connected either to that part of your life, or you're connected to some memory in the past that really brings forward this different idea, this different emotion. And then you can write about it. You can really dive deeper in the lyrics for it, but it's coming from a place that not only has a genuine connection to the overall sound, because it's exactly what you're feeling, what you're relating it to, but then it continues, especially for us as listeners, we get a guide into the mindset that you have, the guide into the emotion that you're feeling. And then that guide allows us to relate to it ourselves and really open up in terms of an emotional setting that we're thinking. Is it going to be for a different reason than yours? Yes. But is it going to be in that same emotional wavelength? Absolutely. And that's where the best songwriters and the best musicians really hit in terms of longevity, because they can create those songs that are not only personal to them and are creative for them, but also have that emotional hit that people can not only relate to themselves, but can empathize with the artist at the same time.
Well said, man. And that's kind of this approach to this EP, to be honest with you. It's some of the coolest stuff. It's the coolest stuff I've been a part of to date. It's the most it's the most personal and open I've ever been lyrically, uh, ever writing. So yeah, there's a certain level of anxiousness within me, to get it out there and see if people are really going to pay attention to the words and the lyrics and stuff like that, and see what people's interpretation of it. Hopefully, people can relate to it as well. That's all I can hope for, right?
That's pretty much all we can hope for at this point. And wanting to dive a little bit deeper into the EP, because again, just talking about, writing instrumentals, nitpicking it, and then getting those emotions to write the vocals for it, to write the lyrics for it, and really maximize out on that. Because there are 5 songs on this EP, when you were going through the writing process from a lyrical standpoint, what was your overall mindset like when you were hearing these songs, and what avenue did you take to really connect with these songs in order to write down what you did, and why did you write down what you did?
As I was saying, the EP is probably the most personal I've gotten with any sort of lyric writing before. But a couple of years ago, my father passed away unexpectedly. Um, so a lot of the lyrical content for me stemmed from the last times that I saw him, our last interactions, uh, the last days that I saw him in the hospital and stuff like that. So uh, a lot of the lyrical content stemmed from that, what I was going through, what I saw, and just kind of explaining where my mindset was, and my family's, and how it made us feel.
That's pretty interesting and pretty deep too, because when you take a look at the track list as well, you got Last Breath, Cassis Beyond Cremation. We talk about The Forsaken, Killing the Only One. It really dives deep in this idea of loss. And when you're experiencing that, especially in an unexpected side of things, that's something that can hit anybody incredibly hard. And it's hard to process too. And anybody can talk about this, whether it's the loss of a close family member, a loss of a close friend, somebody that, or, even a pet too, that you may have really, really been connected to, because you feel those emotions. You feel this sense of uncertainty, or maybe even the sense of just, I'm trying to even think of a word like missing, but like just emptiness, because that person's no longer there. And it's hard to relate to those things at times too, because even though everyone goes through it, you're not necessarily sure how to express that, or maybe even bring that up without maybe breaking down or showing this weakness that you really don't want to show, because people take that in different ways. But by going through this EP and really focusing in on that, my assumption is, especially after listening through it, you got to go through a lot of those emotions, a lot of those feelings within you, process through that, and come out on the other side not only with something that makes you feel better, but also something that if your dad was still around today, he would be able to listen to and look at you and say, I'm proud of you.
Yeah, it's I hope I would think I knew he was proud of me. Before he passed, at the very least, we had a conversation over the phone about that once or twice. Um, but it's yeah, it was therapeutic. It was really nice to have an outlet to be able to do that. Um, your father is the only one you'll ever have, so hence the single that's coming out tomorrow, Killing the Only One. It was really just about, what I saw, and, you know, without getting too in depth, what the hospital, had done, and how they handled the situation, and where I stand as far as what I think happened. So, I'll let it go. I'll let the lyrics go from there. But yeah, more or less, yeah, it's pretty open and honest, for me personally. I can't speak for it doesn't, it's not speaking for the rest of my family. It's obviously just speaking from my point of view and what I saw and what we felt together. Um, but obviously they are put in a way where some of them are a little bit more specific, leaning in towards, yeah, it's my father. And then there's other songs that maybe people can obviously like leave open to interpretation of their own loss in their own lives. We've also lost a former bandmate prior to my coming back into the band. Our bass player Dave Corsilli had passed away So somebody very close to the band. He was in the band for quite a few years, and a good friend within the music scene out here. So again, that loss was very recent as well too. So I think these lyrics will, not just encompass my own personal loss with my family members, but friends that we've lost recently within the scene as well.
We've been connecting it to the friends you've lost, seeing or losing a former band member as well to this by really focusing on the loss of your father. Not only is, again, I said that was therapeutic for you, but probably therapeutic for the other members of the band as well, just because they know your father. They also know your former bassist, and having to deal with that as well. Individually, we all deal with death completely differently. And it could be from maybe we just weren't as connected to that person. Maybe we just think about it in a different light, or we just have a completely different perspective overall. But it just adds to the point where when we come through with something like this, especially if we're even related to your bassist as well, your former bassist, the amount of camaraderie and brotherhood and togetherness that you guys were able to go through, not only working on this EP, but even process through your emotions through that, connecting to these lyrics, connecting to these sounds, and heal together from that, heal and from the mourning, heal from the grief of that, even if it was some time prior. It adds to that connective feeling to the music for us fans, but also for you guys as well, so that when you play these songs and when you really focus in on them, there is going to be this absolute sheer authenticity that comes out there. There's going to be this passion. There's going to be this emotion that comes out through these lyrics, through these instrumentals. And especially when we see you play live, we get to feel that in full force because we get to be directly impacted by the energy you're putting out on stage, by the passion you're putting out there. And of course, us in the crowd, we're going to feed off of that, and we're going to try and give it right back to you. And it's going to be a ping pong match back and forth of who can give each other the energy the most. But so by the end of the night, you guys are absolutely enamored by how great the show was, and we can't believe we put a hole in the wall because we moshed that hard.
That's always the hope for every show, man, is to keep bouncing that energy back and forth off the crowd, for sure. And it's going to be pretty interesting to play these songs live. We've been playing Desolate. We played Desolation a few times live already. But all these other songs it's going to be a whole brand new set. So be a whole wave of emotions, I'm sure. Because getting up there and just not only just like singing the words, but hopefully not going down the rabbit hole of really losing train of thought type of thing and thinking about like where those words and lyrics, where they stemmed from type of thing. But yeah, could only. Can only hope for the best. Send it out there, and hopefully people can at least relate to it in their own lives.
Well, that's even a better part about how with some of these songs you went more specific with your story, and how some of these songs you went a little bit more abstract, to really focus on more of the emotion, let people kind of build their own idea and connect to their own emotion, own stories within this. Because, yeah, it's always great to allow people to connect to that, but sometimes maybe you want to go a little bit more specific just to not always have the same metaphorical style of the songs if you're going to stick with that. But it also gives us a further look within what you went through so that we can get a better understanding. So we get to those songs where they're a little bit more on the connective emotion and we relate to them. Now we're even relating to the one that's more specific because we see where the story comes in. We see where the connection of emotion and reality really hit, so we can connect with that ourselves and feel it. And when you're playing these songs on stage, I have a feeling there's going to come a couple points in time where maybe in your head you're going to go down the rabbit hole just of where these lyrics came from, what you felt. But we're going to look out into the crowd and you're going to see that people are being positively impacted by your art, by what you guys created. And you're going to see that as a healthy thing because you were able to process through some of these things with your bandmates, with your friends, with your family. And now you get to see how people are connecting to it. Plus, even if you open up more on stage, and you've probably seen this happen a number of times. I've seen this happen a number of times. Maybe you've experienced this too, being up on stage, opening up about these things. And then after the show, going back to like the merch table, seeing people and people come up to you and tell you about their own personal experiences or what they went through because the songs are making them feel so much more connected to that. Or even better, your songs help them understand something that they went through, something that they truly had to help work through. and feel even better about it or process through it, because now they had a song or they had music that they could actually explain what it was like to go through that by listening to that song and actually feeling it once again, so that in the end, we can heal positively from some of the darkest points in our lives.
Well, I think that's more important than any financial gain. Is hearing people talk about it after the fact, coming up and talking about their story. Because I was talking about it is going to be the best help, the best remedy for anything, instead of keeping it inside. Since it happened, I mean, and even still to this day, I constantly battle with light and dark, like inside of me, and I talk about that in these songs on the EP. Constant battle with light and dark, with good and evil. Being happy, being sad, being depressed, being trying to just constantly just suppress it and just um, uh, not let it take over or get the better of you, get the best of you, type of thing. But yeah, I mean, Caskets Beyond Cremation, at least more specifically about the last few days of me being with my dad, because I had flown back from California and he was already in a coma. So I didn't get the chance to say goodbye or anything. And then it was about 4 days later that he ended up passing right in front of me. So, those lyrics are very specific to what I saw those last few moments and what happened. So, yeah, that's that.
So now I've got a feeling of no wonder why I connected with that song more than the others, because I had a similar experience when my grandfather died, because I went to go, this was 2021 and he was technically a COVID case, so no one could really go and see him. And I tried sneaking in the hospital to watch one last Monday Night Football game with him because his favorite team was playing my favorite team. So I like Mission Impossible snuck through the hospital to get to his room. And when I got to the door and I looked in the little window and he was just out of it, it was like, I felt like I missed my chance.
Yeah.
And it was hard to see. And then just walking out of there, it was one of my least favorite moments. And then the next day I got the call that he officially passed. And it was like, I kind of just saw it right then and there. And listening to Caskets Beyond Cremation, it kind of took me back to that moment specifically, just standing and seeing him in the window, just not, he was still alive, but he just wasn't there. And it was like, I kept thinking about to myself, I never got a chance to actually say goodbye in person, and it kind of killed me. But then I remember the last time I actually saw him in person, the last thing he did was he handed me a birthday card, and I still have that birthday card in my house. Like, I'm not getting rid of it because it's the last thing I ever got from him. And it kind of sits in with, like, it still hurts that I never got to actually say fully goodbye, but the last interaction I had was still something that was pretty cool. And I have
those moments are special. Yeah, those moments are special, and those are the moments that you should remember. Those are not the last moments of not being able to say goodbye, but all the moments prior to that. Remember when he was in good health, and the times that the football games that you did watch together and stuff. It's all really important, and more important to remember those good times than those very last dark days.
Yeah, or the time when he blatantly told me that I was not his favorite grandson. And that was kind of tough to hold the laughter back in on that one, because he said it before the whole entire family came into the room. I was like, was not expecting that, but okay.
He let you have it. He was open and honest. Yeah, I guess the older you get, the more honest you get, right?
Yeah, pretty much. It's like the filter just, especially my grandfather, just went completely out the window after my grandmother passed, and he was around for another almost 9 years. So it was just like, he just would say whatever was on his mind, didn't care. I knew when he said that, he was coming from a place of like, I need to let this out. I just wanted to say it. Also kind of want to see your reaction to it. But I always look at that moment as just, it's something I always knew was true, but it was just too funny that he just blatantly said it. But it's crazy how positive it is. And I think about the positive. The only time I really think about a negative moment is that last day. That's the only time I think of the negative. But the birthday card, that moment, some of the other crazy one-liners I remember him saying, that always outweigh everything. So even listening to Caskets Beyond Cremation, it's like, even when you think of the negative, by the end of the song, I'm thinking about the positives again.
Yeah. Yeah, because even with all the dark, you got to, there's got to be some sort of balance. There's some sort of light within dark, and it's just being able to prevail and move forward and finding a way to deal with it and move forward through the darkness and get back to the lighter side of things.
Yeah, because if we can't do that and we sit in the darkness forever, then life becomes dark. Then we don't continue to move on. We don't continue to move forward. We don't heal, and nothing really ever comes of it. The creativity dies. The beauty of life dies. And we don't want that to happen. Would the people that we lost want that to happen to us? They would want to see us thrive. They would want to see us do the best for ourselves. They'd want to see us doing things that not only brought happiness and joy to us, but would positively impact the people around us, whether it's family that they knew, friends that they knew, people that they didn't know that we could positively impact. They'd be looking down on us and smiling if we were being able to do that. And again, like I said, I'm pretty sure your dad would be looking down on you right now at the songs that you created with through this and being able to see the positive impact that it's going to have on people, whether they're just listening to them or they see you at a live show, and know that you absolutely did it right.
Yeah, I hope so. I know he's looking down. It's a it's a constant battle, man. Just trying to not just fall into the dark side, But it's a constant struggle still for me, just going back and forth, being able to going down the rabbit hole of being dark and depressed, and it's kind of trying to bring myself back and at the very least try to create something positive and memorable out of all of it, and remembering him.
Another thing that I just thought about with kind of even the beauty behind this too is by putting this stuff out there, by being, open about it with your music, being sometimes even more specific about it. When you get into those moments where you kind of go towards the darkness, you kind of dip into some more depressive tendencies. When you think about the negatives around this, not only do your bandmates and your friends and your family, do they get to understand exactly what you're still feeling and know how to support you best, but us as fans, we get to hear these songs and we get to feel them too, but we get to empathize. We get to understand what you went through. And when those moments happen, even if we see it up on stage, we get to understand, okay, we know that this is tough. We know that this isn't an easy topic, but we understand and we're caring enough to know that we're going to help you get through this. So even in those darkest moments, or maybe in those moments where you dip back down, there's people around you, not only people close to you, but people who love the music and people who know the music that are going to be there as those forces of positivity and those forces of light so that we can get you out of that point in time and allow you to get back to the point where you're living the life that you should be living. You're bringing the positivity to people and you're not stuck in the darkness anymore.
I figure it's somewhat of a positive approach to going forward and dealing with it, kind of putting it out in a way to remember his legacy, and just to have some sort of legacy of myself and him, and yeah, it's like super grateful to Mario that he gave me the opportunity to and a platform to be able to deal with these emotions the best way that I know how.
Probably the best way that he knows how, probably the best way that many of us that love music know how, is just to let this stuff out and to express it through music. Even if you're like me who doesn't make music, but I get to sometimes talk about these instances and even put my own self into it by talking to you, hearing your story, seeing kind of how it relates, and just even feeling more positive about it. Like, even through this, you absolutely even helped me a little bit more. So I even got to thank you on that too, man.
Yeah, my pleasure, Kev. It's good talking with you. It's a lot of the things that you said are exactly how I feel, and you articulated probably maybe a little bit better than me.
Hey, I've been doing this for almost 6 years, and I've learned how to talk at some point in time. I had to. It just happened. But you know what? It's through the music. It's through the ability to understand these things and be able to process these things a little bit better because of not only things I've went through, but also listening to music, understanding how they connect with me and how the stories that you have, you put in there, how they all relate. Just just clicks in my brain somehow. And again, even today, it really helped. So I even got to thank you for that.
Yeah, it was nice talking with you, for sure.
It was fantastic talking.
Felt more like a conversation, less like an interview.
Oh, that's always what I go for. I'm like, because if it's an interview, it's like, I can just ask questions. You can answer them. It's just going to be boring. I'm like, there's a written publications. That's what that's for, because you can't have that back and forth really. But on a platform like this, it's like I have the ability to do that. And we can talk a little bit deeper about certain things, and we can see how these things interact. But then we can get deep on topics, and even through things that maybe we're going through, even just by talking about music, even by talking about your creation, your art, the things you went through, we can heal together on it. It's a beautiful thing. So that's what I love about this stuff. So again, man, thank you.
My pleasure. Thank you.
Well, I got one more question before we wrap this up, and it is something I love to ask every single artist I bring to the podcast. It's a way for me and all the other people that love music to not only get to know more new music, but get to know the music that you love as well. So I'm going to ask you for 3 of these. So can you name me 3 bands or artists that you love that you would love to see more people get into right now?
Orbit Culture.
Yes.
For sure. They within the past couple of years, they've done a few U.S. tours, and then they've just kind of exploded. I think they announced. They just did a couple international Knotfest dates, and they are going to do a Trivium Bullet for a Valentine tour early next year.
Oh yeah, that's right.
I saw that one was announced, so I can talk about that. I'm not spoiling anything. That one was already out. So yeah, they're going to get in front of a lot of people with that tour too. And out of any newer bands, like they inspire me. Like they're killer. Like I love that kind of Swedish metal sound. I love the production. I love the vocals, the riffs, the hooks, the choruses, everything about it sounds amazing. So I can't stress enough. So definitely Orbit Culture. There's a band out of let's say the Milwaukee area called Repentance. I would check out Repentance. And see, who else would I say that's there's a band from the Inland Empire called Last of Our Kind, and we played quite a few shows with them over the past year, and they are super heavy, brutal. I think they recently just released an EP as well, so check out Last of Our Kind too.
Those are 3 good picks, and you even picked a Milwaukee area band that I actually wasn't even aware of at this point. So now I know exactly what I'm doing after this when I start putting this together and have to go back to work is going to be just listen to Repentance and really get into them.
Yeah, they're gnarly. They just put out a brand new album last year.
Ooh, perfect. I know where to start then.
I think they're doing a one-off show pretty soon with Mastodon, so they're getting out some really cool opportunities too. So the music has got to be fucking killer, or else how would you get a spot opening for Mastodon, right? It's got to be somewhat good.
Yeah, it's got to be good. If you're getting a spot opening for Mastodon, you got to have something in there. But man, those are 3 great picks and a great conversation with you, Evan. So I really want to thank you for taking the time today. I really appreciate it. And now I'm going to close this episode out with 3 things. So first things first. Passageways, the brand new EP from Thrown Into Exile, is going to be out on November 15th. So by the time you have been watching and listening to this episode, it's already going to be out. So here's what you're going to do. You're going to go to the description of the podcast where it says find Thrown Into Exile online. Links, labels for there are everything. Everything's down there. So you can find where to stream the EP, where to listen to it, where to get a copy of it as well, where to go support the band, where to go get some merch, where to go follow them on social media, and when they're playing shows, where to go see them live as well. So I'm doing all the research for you. I'm putting in all the legwork, or all the keyboard work, I should say. All you have to do is go down there, tap your favorite link, and go, and you are set. But be sure to get behind Thrown Into Exile and follow them today. Now it's time for number 2. Evan, this is a fantastic conversation. Whenever I have great conversations with artists, I tend to make a certain promise as a way to say thank you, and I wish to continue to support the band in the future. And there's no way that I am not making this promise to you. So my promise is this. It is not an if. It is a when. And when I get to see you perform live for the first time, because I missed you at Milwaukee Metal Fest last year, but when I get to see you perform live for the first time, I will come and find you. I will give you a big ol', hey buddy, how's it going? But that's not the promise. The promise is first round's on me. Whatever it is, beer, drink, water, Red Bull, crazy kind of juice, whatever it is, I got you covered.
Sounds good. I'll hold you to that.
Oh, please do. There's some people that haven't yet, and it's like, oh yeah, you're good. I'm like, but I made the promise. My bank account might not like it, but I made the promise. I got to make good on it. What the hell?
Got to follow through.
Got to follow through. So thank you, Evan. And now it's time for number 3. I cannot end this episode by saying goodbye. That is way too final. I made you a promise. I got to see you play live. I got to help try and put a hole in the wall for moshing for whatever time I can see you play live. But also made you a promise. Got to keep it. And this was a fantastic conversation. Would love to do it again and bring you back on the podcast again in the future. So goodbye is too final. This is I'll see you later.
I'll see you soon. Take care, Kev. Thank you.
Well, folks, that's my interview with Evan from the band Thrown Into Exile. Now it's time for Kevin's final thought. And what's my final thought on this one? I'm glad you asked. So, man, we opened up like crazy on this one. I've seen this happen in the past before, too. You remember our episode with Dose of Adolescence back in November, where we really went deep into hearing about how they gave up music to take care of their father. And hearing Evans not only speak about the loss of his father, but start to get a little bit more specific on it. I mean, it connected some of these songs in so many ways, especially Caskets Beyond Cremation, because I was always kind of figuring out, I'm connecting to my grandfather's passing in this, which happened back at the end of 2021, so 3 years ago at this point. And why is it so heavily connected to me? And now I understand why, because when Evan was going deep and talking about it for himself with the loss of his father, I mean, he got specific on it, but it's also that you're feeling so many different ways about it, and we're never going to know fully the real things that happen, especially when it comes to how the hospital handled Evan's father's situation. But that's something that we can pick up through the lyrics, and we can try and figure out from his perspective, and we can get a further understanding connection to why it connects with us, how it relates to some of the things that we've gone through. And not only can maybe we process through this and feel better about it and heal from potential grief that we're still holding on to about the loss of a loved one, but we can also be there and be more empathetic to the people that have gone through this, are struggling through this, or to the artists that have created this stuff that are still struggling through this as well. So I really want to thank Evan for opening up on that, because it gives us a greater appreciation for not only these musicians and these artists for what they do and how they open up, but help us empathize with them and connect with them and give them support when they need it, because their music is giving us support when we need it. So I want to thank Evan once again. Be sure to check out Thrown Into Exile. Links for everything in the description of the podcast below, for YouTube, social media, where you can find the EP, where you can find and play a live show. Everything is down there, so go check them out. Be sure to check us out on the Chord Progression Podcast as well. Follow us online, Facebook, Twitter, Instagram. We are also, here on YouTube. So hit the subscribe button right down here. Hit the follow button on Spotify and Apple Podcasts. Links down there below as well. And hit the like buttons, because help push us in the algorithm. Yeah. But as we close out this year, we're getting closer to the end of the year for 2024. There's going to be more great stuff coming in 2025. Trust me. So that's going to be it, everybody. Thank you for watching, listening to the Chord Progression Podcast. My name is Kevin, and you guys know how I end every single one of these episodes. Big, healthy, and hearty. See ya! Yeah.